Dennis has over 30 years experience working with people to achieve personal satisfaction, excellence and high performance. His main area of expertise and interest is assisting people to thrive through change, applying his lessons and experience in a practical and pragmatic style, which is one of his main strengths, and I'm sure that'll come through his presentation. Outside of his coaching work, Dennis is also a prolific speaker, blogger and podcaster, and somewhere in there he also wrote a book. Dennis, we're really pleased to have you join us today for this ALFA Pop-Up webinar, and take it away.
I'm assuming you can hear me, Elise?
Yes.
Okay, I've just done something in my office here. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity of speaking with you. Let's make this as practical as possible. Sorry, my lighting's gone all funny. Look, before I start talking about some of the sleep strategies, I want to sort of get into your world and ask you a few questions. And probably the first question I want to ask you is, I want you to think about a time in your life when you were sleeping well. And what was that like for you? And what was going on in your life at that period of time? Equally, I want you to think about a time in your life when you were sleeping poorly, and what was going on for you in your life at that stage, and how did it feel to be sleeping poorly as well as well? And if you were sleeping poorly, what did you actually do? And the reason I wanted to ask that question up front is what I'm going to talk about today is going to be based on science, based on research, based on lived experience, but we're all got our own lived experience, and you got to learn from your own lived experience about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So in the context of those questions, when you were sleeping well, what was going on for your life? When you're sleeping poorly, what was going on in your life? And what did you do to address your poor sleep? Let me start giving you some of my presentations, some of my thoughts. Sleep is fundamental to us. Anywhere in the world where I talk, and as soon as I mention sleep, people start to pay attention. They wake up and pay attention. If you were to do a Google search today, which I did about half an hour ago, and put in the word sleep in Google, there would be 2.070 billion articles on sleep right now on the internet. Sleep is all over the place. And it's really important we get a good night's sleep for a whole range of reasons. There's health reasons. It talks about our bone density. It talks about, good sleep allows us to lose weight. It's linked to our obesity rates. Good sleep allows us to have greater metabolism. It addresses anxiety. It helps us with our overthinking. It helps us with our depression. And we know from research that if you're a good sleeper, you also get better sex. So there's every reason why you want to sleep well. And if you ever wanted to do any research on sleep, one of the best bodies in Australia that does research on sleep and why you should sleep well is the Adelaide Institute of Sleep Health, based around the Flinders University. Now, isn't it ironic that there's an institute on sleep health in one of Australia's most sleepiest towns? There's not too many people from Adelaide or South Australia on this call, is there, Alish? If so, we've just lost it.
Yeah, look, Dennis, there's a couple. He's up there.
Okay, so look, let's start talking about sleep and sleep strategies. First thing I want to tell you, folks, you've got to know yourself. You've got to know your own times when you should sleep, and you know yourself. And it's really important to listen to your own soul when you are starting to talk about sleep. The question I'm always asked is, Dennis, how much sleep do I need in my life? Well, can I tell you, from the day we were born to the day we die, the amount of sleep we need actually doesn't vary very much. Some of you people will say to me, oh, Dennis, as soon as my head hits the pillow, and this is probably more of a Blake response, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm asleep. And I say to them, what do you like 90 minutes later? And you say, well, I'm awake. I'm restless. I'm dozing. I'm not getting good quality sleep. Women, on the other hand, will say to me, and I'm sorry if I'm a bit inappropriate, but I can only tell you my lived experience. Women will say, Dennis, I have a bit more trouble getting to sleep, but when I get to sleep, I sleep pretty well, but then I'm awake around 4:30, 5 o'clock, which is the worst time for you to be awake for a whole range of reasons. So that we do have differences. And for those blokes who, as soon as the head hits the pillow, they're asleep, at 90 minutes later, they're awake. For women who are awake around that 4:35 area, we know you're not getting what we call restorative sleep. You're actually sleeping through exhaustion. And that's not a good sleep strategy. No good sleeping through exhaustion, because we don't get into what we call restorative sleep. And a lot of the stuff I want to talk to you about today is about how do we actually get you into restorative sleep. So going back to that question, how much sleep do we actually need? Like I said, from the day we're born to the day we die, there's not too much variation in terms of our sleep requirements. From about, no, I'm just going to do some of my research here. From newborns to about toddlers, we know they need about 14 to 17 hours sleep. Preschool kids to about teenagers, we know they need somewhere between 8 to 10 hours sleep. But we also know from about 18 years of age to about to the day you die, you need somewhere between 7 to 9 hours sleep. From the 18 years of age to the day you die, you need about 7 to 9 hours sleep. Now, yes, there are some people who will get through life on what we call a short sleep cycle, where they can actually get through life in 4 to 5 hours. There are some people who have a long sleep cycle where they need to sleep somewhere between 15 to 18 hours. But 97% of the people on this call and the people around the world will need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And of that 7 to 9 hours of sleep, we're probably talking about 3 to 3.5 hours and maybe even 4 hours of what we call restorative sleep. So sleeping is really important to us for a whole range of reasons. And I want to tell you, you can't cheat the process. You can't cheat the process. Anyone who's ever been going through a tough time, and when I've got involved with the family or the business or the relationship, one of the things they will say to me is, Dennis, they were not sleeping well. They were not sleeping well before they did some dumb things in terms of their decision making, before they become unsafe. And sometimes when we even take our own life, you know, there's always this characteristic of sleep. So sleep is one of those indicators. I call it the fuel of your resilience. Your ability, if you're not sleeping well, you're not doing anything. Everything we do when we're not sleeping well becomes itchy. And we just become less of a person, probably not as good a partner, probably certainly not a good employee, certainly not as good a community member. So it's really quite important. So I want to give you the techniques of getting a good night's sleep, okay? And getting good quality sleep, just not one good night, but good quality sleep. But before I tell you this, if you are having trouble sleeping poorly, please go and see your doctor, okay? Because you do need to rule out some sleep apnea. We do need to rule out some obstruction issues, maybe in terms of your body. So please go and see your doctor and have a conversation with them about sleep. And if you need to, please have that sleep apnea test. I've had it. I was worried about myself for a while. I went back. I haven't got it, but a few of my friends have, and they've been given some great solutions. And they would say to me, "Look, my life changed around, Dennis." You know, so please go and see your doctor first up. So you would have heard an expression called power napping. Well, Lessons Learned Consulting, for the last, we've been in the practice for about 15 years now in various forms, in the game longer than that. But we spend so much time on this sleep issue, we've come up with our own process called power sleeping. And it's based on some work done by a lady by the name of Dr. Carol Harrington from the University of Sydney. She's a world expert on sleep. And in my notes that I'm going to give you post this presentation, you'll see that I refer to her as a footnote. Great book, download it, go and buy it. She's done some wonderful research. To get a good night's sleep, folks, there are 3 issues we need to think about. First of all, we need to think about your environmental issues. We need to think about procedural issues. And then we need to think about mindset issues, right? So let me just go through them. And like I said, in this PowerPoint presentation, I'll give to you after this through Elisa, you'll see a lot of this stuff's already included in there. First of all, environmental stuff. Let's talk some of the environmental stuff that you need to apply before you may have a good night's sleep. First rule of getting a good night's sleep, folks, is this. Your bedroom is for 2 things, sleep and sex, right? That's the only thing that's going to happen in your bedroom. So when you go into your bedroom, your head is going to start to say to you, I'm going to have a good night's sleep, or your head's going to start to say, I'm going to have some sex. So you need to actually start to manage the way you live your life and the way you structure your environment to make sure you're getting a good night's sleep. First thing first, folks, is that if you have it in your bedroom's got to be dark, cool, quiet, and comfortable. The best temperature to get to sleep, ladies and gentlemen, anywhere in the world is 18.33 degrees Celsius. Okay, 18.33 degrees Celsius. If you've got a TV in your room or electric clock or anything that emulates light, get rid of them. No electric products in your bedrooms. Okay, no light, no those little reset buttons. They produce a thing we call blue light, and blue light could be red, blue, green, a few. And what it does is it actually hinders the release of your melatonins. So you might be actually getting it. You might be asleep, but you're not getting into what we call deep sleep, this REM, which I'll refer to in a moment. So no electric products in your bedrooms. Make sure it's dark, quiet, and cool and comfortable. Make sure it's about 18.33 degrees Celsius. Make sure you've got a good bed. Make sure you've got a good mattress, good pillow, good blankets, all that type of stuff. Those of you who travel or used to travel, like I used to, and hopefully will soon, you'll know when you go in the hotel room, sometimes you almost like, you may as well be on the bloody moon, there's so much light on the bloody place, you know. So you need to manage that environment. Simple questions. How old's your mattress? Some of the people I work with, I ask them, how old's your mattress? One bloke told me, oh, it's the same mattress I used to have when I was a child. And you say, well, that's not going to help you. So how comfortable is your bed? You know, is your bedroom welcoming and relaxing? Remember the comment about sleep and sex. Are they good colours? Are your curtains really dark, right? Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound contradictory in a moment, but the trick is to have dark curtains so your room is dark and, like I say, quiet and comfortable. Sometimes it's worthwhile having a few posters, a few mantras around your bedrooms, but whatever happens as soon as you go in that bedroom, you've got to feel comfortable. That's the first thing, the environment. Second thing is the procedures. Now, this is really important in terms of the procedural stuff. First thing I want you to know is that to get a good night's sleep, your brain needs to be trained. So you've got to have a regular bedtime and a regular awakening time. Now, some people say to me, oh, how much can I change around with that sleeping time and waking up time? The answer is not much. Okay. Some people say, oh, I'll catch up with sleep on the weekend. Doesn't work like that. Syracuse University, the sleep scientists would tell us the best time to go to sleep is 10:37 at night, and the best time to get up in the morning is 5:51. I say to them, what about daylight saving? They say, don't even go there, Dennis. So there's some procedures, and one of the first procedures is get used to going to bed at the same time and getting up in the same time, right? Our brains are really lazy, and what our brains need for us to be well, to be resilient, to be on top of our game is we need routine. And one of the first routines we know about sleep is 10:37, getting up at 5:51. Have a going to bed routine. And by that, what I mean is the last 45 minutes of your day should be starting to wind down your brain to go to sleep. Again, remember the brain likes routine. So we should have these procedures that tell us that the last 45 minutes of our day, it's quiet time for us. You know, we're starting to wind ourselves down. So we could do things like, we could have a bit of music on. We could, you know, the old white noise. We could have a bit of TV on. Whatever we do, we could read. We might even go for a bit of a walk. But whatever we're going to do, the last 45 minutes of our day is relaxing time. We know it takes our brain, like I say, about 45 minutes to be relaxed enough to get a good night's sleep. So the last 45 minutes of our day, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're not checking our emails. We're not on Facebook. We're not on the Bureau of Meteorology checking our weather forecast for tomorrow. We're not doing all those things that most of you people are doing. We're not on all those little apps, young people, that might stir you up. What have I said? You're going to cut me off, Alicia, are you? So we're not doing all those types of things. The best sleeping posture, ladies and gentlemen, again proved by science, is naked but with bed socks on. So part of your procedure when you go to bed is get naked but with bed socks. Now some of you blokes will be saying, God, I've got to start to wear bed socks. That's okay. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. We're going to avoid food 2 to 3 hours before we go to bed. We're going to avoid alcohol for a couple of hours before we go to bed. We're not going to exercise for a couple of hours. We're going to go to bed. Every message we do has to be about getting ourselves and getting our heads right. Now, if you read before you go to bed, that's okay. That's a good way of winding down your brain. Except I'd say to you is make sure it's more paper-based books or newspapers rather than screen-based. But if you are going to use screen-based technology like your iPad, like your Android, like your phone, all that type of stuff, do that little setting where you push the backlight down, you know, so you don't want bright light in your eyes. I've mentioned 2 to 3 hours before you get not eating. I've mentioned alcohol. Get used to having a nap. I don't know if you people like napping, but I'm a very strong believer in napping. But if you are going to nap, don't nap for any more than 20 minutes. Now, there's science behind this, and this is where we start talking about what we call the rapid eye movement. To get into what we call rapid eye movement, which is where we get into good restorative sleep, we know we need to go through about 2 to 3 or sometimes 3 to 4 stages of what we call non-REM. Now, non-REM is when we're starting to slowly, our body's starting to go deep. You know, when you're an REM, by the way, is when you dream of being stuck in mud, where you're trying to do something, but you can't actually get your body to respond. That's when we know you're in REM, where you're in deep sleep. But to get to that stages, we know you need to go through a number of REM stages, which are around 20 minutes. So the trick is, if you can possibly nap during the day, no longer than 20 minutes. And if you become really good at this stuff, what you'll find is you don't even have to set your alarm, because after 20 minutes, your brain will spark. So, you know, I'm a big believer in naps. My father was a very strong believer in napping. My father actually died in his sleep, which is in the Eastern culture, that's a good karma. So he died very peacefully in his sleep, which is more than you can say for the 24 people in the bus he was driving. So start to be a good napper. Now, the other day I tweeted out an article, actually from the Adelaide Institute I mentioned before, about a technique called caffeine napping. If there are people out there who are on rosters and shift work, the Institute in South Australia has found out there's a technique called caffeine napping, which is have a cup of coffee before you go to bed, or before you have a nap. Have the nap for 20 minutes and you'll wake up with a double banger energy boost. They've done some research on it. I tweeted it out the other day in through my social media. Have a search for it. So there's another technique. Speaking of coffee and tea, try not to have coffee or tea if you're sleeping poorly. Try not to have coffee or tea in the afternoon before you're going to go to bed. Some of you would say to me, "Oh, hang on, Dennis. I have a cup of coffee before I go to bed and I sleep pretty well for 8 hours." Good on you. Keep doing that if it works for you. The research says don't have coffee or tea before you go to bed. But I know one of my patterns and my procedures is I need a cup of ginger tea before I go to bed. So we're all got our own little techniques, okay? That's what I said first thing to you. All of us have got things that work for you. If it's working for you, keep doing it. If it's not working for you, think of other ways to do, other things to do. So they're the types of procedures. Try not to smoke. If you smoke, you're dumb. But smoke just winds you up. Some people in the research have baths. I can't have a bath. I hate baths. Have showers and all that type of stuff. But look, whatever works for you, works for you. But the whole idea of the procedure, folks, is to get your brain relaxed in a routine, supported by the environment to give you a good night's sleep, right? So the first two parts of my model are environmental. Second part of my model is procedural. The last part of my model is mindset. And I just want to share something with you. I like beaver. Do you? I find beavers, when you look at them, are just one of the most fascinating things you'll ever see in your life. When I was in North America a couple of years ago, we went down this boat on the top of the Mississippi, and these people showed me these beavers, and they were just amazing what they would do. They actually build these little dams and build these little bridges to stop water from getting through. It sometimes have to be dynamited away, you know. And I thought, that's what our minds are like, you know. There's two parts of our mind. There's what we call the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is what we control. The subconscious mind is uncontrollable. And we know our subconscious mind is almost 90% stronger than our conscious mind. That's why at 3:30 in the morning, folks, we are up and our heads is racing because our subconscious mind has taken over, right? They've taken over our mind. And part of our mindset, folks, has to be our ability to manage that subconscious mind. And one of the reasons why so many people get so confused and so tired is that we actually try and suppress our subconscious mind, and we suppress all those negative thoughts and worrying thoughts. Remember, our brain's really lazy. Our brain will always go to the worst case scenario, okay? So what I'm going to suggest you to do, folks, is think of the beaver and think about how you can blow those barriers away. Because until we do that, you're never actually going to have a good night's sleep. And this is the third part of my strategy about your mindset. So how do we get the right mindset in terms of going to sleep? Sorry, I'm going to tell you something that some of you people are going to think is new world, but it's true, and that is you've got to learn to breathe. You've got to learn to be mindful. You've got to learn to meditate. You've got to actually start to control this thing. And a lot of us blokes, when we're going through a tough time, you know what we do? We try and suppress our subconscious mind. We don't let it out. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because at 3:30 in the morning, that's when the subconscious mind starts to take over, right? So what are some of the things we can do to get our mind under control? And this is really important. First thing, a couple of things I do, and I advise you folk to do it. One is be really clear about your purpose. Be really clear about why you're doing what you do. Be really clear about the why in your life. You know, learn to breathe. Before you go to bed, a technique I advise my clients to do is get used to writing things on a piece of paper, right? Walk around at the end of the night. If you can't sleep very well, do the good, the bad, the ugly. What did you do really well today? What did you do really poorly today? What could you do? What are you going to do tomorrow? More critically, what's inside your control? What's not inside your control? And focus on those things. So identify those areas of control and think about the strategies. But if you're lying in bed saying to yourself, oh, I've got all these things happening, stop. Get up, write on a piece of paper, allow the subconscious mind and honor your subconscious mind because that's the one that's keeping you awake. Acknowledge it, write on a piece of paper, and then learn to breathe. Go to bed with a gratitude attitude. And by that, what I mean is before you go to bed, you think to yourself, gee, what did I do well today? What did other people do well for me? And how have I contributed to make this world a better place? Be grateful for what you've got, folks. When our mind is negative, we always go to those bad case scenarios. Go to the good spots. Go to those happy places in your world. Visualize times in your life when you have been most happiest. Right? And I bet that's when you were sleeping well, is when those things were happening for you. But look, if at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, you can't, it's just not working for you, don't lie there. Don't say to yourself, come on, Dan, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, because the subconscious mind is saying, no way, no way, no way. Okay? So get up, walk around a bit, have a glass of water, do some low key stuff. Don't turn the TV on. Okay? Don't get on your iPad. Don't get on your Facebook. Don't get on your emails. Just sit and breathe. Okay? Be nice to yourselves because the subconscious mind is wanting a break. But in the morning, if you can't get out of bed, right, and some of you sometimes have that difficulty when we know we're going through a tough time, first thing you got to do in terms of getting out of your bed is to put your feet on the floor. Okay? Just put your feet on. That's all I want you to do. And try not to just fall back, okay? Put your feet on the floor and get up. But make sure you prepared the previous day, the previous morning, the previous day. In other words, if you get up, if you ever decide you're going to lose a bit of weight and you're going to health fitness routine, you get up at, I'm going to go running in the morning. You get up at 5:30, just better go to bed. You haven't got your runners out, you haven't got your gear out, you go straight back to bed, okay? So you've got to make it easy on yourselves. So Elise, I know we've got a few questions, but I just wanted to summarize that by saying there are 3 things. Sleep is really important, okay? There are 3 things you need to focus on, folks. It's about power sleeping. Get your right environment right, get your right procedures, and get your mindset right. And if you're going to do those types of things, you're going to have a long-term happy life with good quality sleep. And if you get good quality sleep, there's all those benefits I talked about earlier on. Okay, Elise, can I put it back to you? We're about 5 minutes to go. So are there any questions or comments or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'll just invite everyone to use the chat bar. It'll come through to us on our end if you've got any questions. But in the meantime, we've had a bit of an influx of questions before the webinar, so I'll read out some of those. One that came through was everyone has different needs when it comes to the amount of sleep, but is it possible to sleep too much?
Yes, it is. In fact, that's a sign of emotional ill health. It is absolutely a sign of where there's something going wrong. That 7 to 9 hours is your boundaries. Look, you might be longer than that, by the way, and you could have that long sleep gene, but that's only less than 3% of the population. If you are sleeping too much, folks, you're avoiding something, okay? And that's this mindset stuff. You've got to write stuff down. People say to me, "Oh, I can't get out of bed then." I said, "Well, write down what are your issues, mate?" Then they go through the issues with me, and I look at them and I say, "Well, no wonder you can't get out of bed, mate. I wouldn't get out of bed with some of those challenges you got in your life." But it's about breaking it and saying, "Okay, what can I control? What can't I control?" I mean, this corona thing has got a lot of people worried, I think. What can you control about it, you know? What you can control, what you can control now. Okay, so it's about, see, a lot of people right now I think are overwhelmed, and overthink stuff. That's what makes us not, overthinking doesn't allow us to sleep very well. So it is very possible to sleep too much, and it's a negative sign. Give me a call if you can't sleep, if you're sleeping too much, or go and see your doctor.
I've got another one over here. Can you make up for missed hours sleep?
Nope.
If you get 6 hours sleep a night during weeknights?
Nope. I bet
no weekend sleep in.
I bet the person who asked that question was about between 18 and 25, where they're trying to go hard during the week. No, look, you can in short term, but eventually it's going to burn you. Okay, you've got to get, your brain loves this routine of 7 to 9. Okay. The brain loves the routine of going to bed at bloody 10:30 or getting up at 6 o'clock, whenever it was. Look, but there are going to be times when we go on a bit of a tear and bloody have a good Friday night or a Saturday night or whatever. But that's got to be the minimum. Don't get in a routine of not sleeping over the weekend and try and cover it over the week. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Sorry.
Well, that answered one of the other questions about how important is it to have a routine.
It is critical at so many levels, folks. It's your productivity, it's your safety, it's all that stuff. And it's all about this thing up here, how you manage it. And you've got to manage your brain. And believe it, you can manage it, okay? You are not a victim. You are the victor, okay? So have that mindset.
Another one that came through was, I find I can't nap anymore. It always turns into a sleep of about 2 hours. This is a bad thing.
That is a bad thing. That is a bad thing, because that'll screw your normal sleeping rhythm. That 2 hour, what you do is you actually get into bloody REM, but you don't spend enough time in it, okay? And what you'll find is when you do that, you actually wake up groggier than you went to bed, and you went to sleep when you had your nap. So no, that's not a good thing, okay?
Another one that's just come through. On the topic of waking up in the morning, is hitting the snooze button on the alarm bad, or should you get up straight away? If it is okay, how long should you snooze for?
It is okay, but only 10 minutes, okay? Because snooze, you don't want your snooze to become your nap, okay? Otherwise, that 10-minute nap, 10-minute snooze is the mind you, it depends on what you're going to do during the 10 minutes, at least. Going back to my comment of what happens in the bedroom. No, it's no more than 10 minutes, mate. As a snooze, that's probably the limit we'd recommend.
We've had another one come through. What advice do you have for people who need to start work very early in the day?
Then get a routine. Now, this is a really good question. And what do you do about those fly in, fly out type people, and what do you do about those people who are on rosters, like, I know they're not online, but air traffic controllers whose rosters do shift and all that type of stuff? That's a really good question. The thing is, I would suggest to you, those people who have to start early in the morning should actually go to bed a bit earlier at night, okay? But get that routine. We know most accidents in shift periods happen around 3:30 to about 4:15 in the morning, okay? Because we're in that really, that's a terrible time. Like air traffic controllers, truck drivers, 3:30 or 4:15. That's when the neuroscience tells us the brain is really struggling. So what I say to those people is, nap during the day if you possibly can, because you've got kids at home and all that type of stuff, not always possible, but try and get to bed a little bit a little bit earlier. But those who get up early in the morning, meditation is really important. Okay, meditation, sleeping, getting into a happy space is really important in terms of sleep technology.
Getting questions coming in thick and fast, so we've got a few coming through. If your regular bedtime is, say, 9 p.m, does that mean your wake-up time can be earlier, or is there a critical sleep thing that happens early in the morning?
Yeah, we don't advise you to be awake. We don't advise you. There's a whole range of your body actually heals at a medical level about 3:30 to about 4:15, 4:30, right? So that's why I say that 4 to 4:15 is not a good time to sleep. What I'd encourage you to do is, not always possible, by the way, is to, if you can push your sleep time back to about 10 and get up about more towards 5, that's probably a better pattern than getting up about that 4. I had a client once, mate, his wife said to me, they said, "Oh, can you go and talk to our mate? Because he's always awake at 3 o'clock in the morning." I said, "Well, that's not good." So I went and sat this bloke, talked to him for a while. And there's nothing, he was very functional. I said, "Mate, you might be one of these blokes in the 3%er. I said, so he said, "Yeah, I'm always up at 3 o'clock. I said, "What time are you in bed?" He said, 8 p.m. You know? So I said, "You got any kids?" He goes, "No." I said, "Funny about that."
Yeah.
We all have our own patterns, you know.
Now, this one's interesting. You might have to eat your words, Dennis. I'm not sure. If you're not supposed to exercise before bed, why is sex okay?
Because 45 seconds of sweating and humping, 45 seconds of sweating and humping is not considered exercise, okay? It's considered. It's
the obvious question to follow on from that.
You wouldn't believe how many times I've asked that question, and usually it's from some dickhead bloke who's trying to bloody make a point. And my response is 45 seconds of, first of all, 45 seconds of anticipation and 45 seconds. No, that's a bit rude. Sorry. So they are two different things, okay? I bet I know the person who asked that question too, by the way.
I'd be interested to know afterwards. Another question, roughly what percentage of time should you spend in each sleep stage, REM, deep, awake, etc.?
Yeah, good. If any of you people have got one of these things, that's just a bloody, what's that called? Garmin, or, you know, those Jawbones, or those, you can actually do it on your iPhone too, by the way. There's apps. We would say, I think, again, it depends on who you are. I don't think there's any fast rules, but if you can get 40% of your time when you're asleep in restorative sleep, that's a good thing. 40%. So if for example you sleep for 7 hours, 40%, what's that? About 33 hours. That's a pretty good sleep if you're doing that. So that's a broad benchmark, and look, it'll be very dependent individual and dependent on the circumstances and where you are in the world. And look, even if you are in deep sleep, that doesn't mean you're dead to the world. You're still moving around. There's still, you know, you can still be moving, but in deep sleep. So the body can still be moving. Sometimes people say to me, "Oh, Dan, what happens if I get up and go for a whiz in the middle of the night in my middle of my REM?" That's not a bad thing. It's far better to get up and have a whiz than not get it. But it's how quickly you go back to sleep. Okay. And usually, if you're in the REM, you probably don't even remember getting up and having a bloody whiz.
And last one. So we're doing okay for time. So if anyone wants any last minute questions, but the last one I've got here at the moment is it okay to go to bed early if you're really stuffed? And my husband and I were having an intense argument about this last week.
What was the answer?
My vote was, yep, completely fine.
I would say probably not. I would say, look, if you're tired, you need to go to sleep if you're crabby and all that type of stuff, right? If you're not safe, you're not functional, absolutely. But it depends on how often you're doing it. I mean, if you're just exhausted, you know, you're doing exams, you're being end of a night shift or whatever, you've got to look after yourself. You know, I'm a great believer in the soul's ability to look after the body if we listen to the soul, okay? we allow the soul to run our lives. But I would really encourage you as much as possible to have the routine around that 10 to 6 time frame, half past 10 to about 6. But again, horses for courses. But if you're really tired, if it's in a marital situation, you might be saying, go to bed because you're annoying me anyway. so that might be the scenario. Yeah, but I'd really encourage people to, if you possibly can, around that 10 to 3. But look, I know there are some people who are night shift who don't knock off to about 6 or 7 a.m. So we've got to get them into their routine of sleeping at the bed. And that's a household thing, you know. If kids are at home, they got to know mum and dad just got home from shift. They need some quiet time. So that's a whole of health strategy when we're dealing with shift workers.
Alrighty, well, that was all the questions I had come through. So thank you for that, Dennis. That was
great joy.
A fantastic session, and I'm getting some messages through now from people saying how much they've been enjoying this. So you've been very positively received. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And
I'll send that PowerPoint presentation to you, which you'll circulate to all the folk, yeah?
Yes, yeah, because we do a follow-up email, so I'll include it with that.
Yep.
And for everyone that's online, just a reminder, as usual, at the end of these webinars, we have the survey. Just if you could let us know your thoughts and any ideas for anyone else you might like to see on the ALFA Pop-Up webinars. But other than that, Dennis, fantastic session. Thank you very much for coming and joining us and working with us to get this out to everyone.
Always a great joy.
Yeah, and thank you, everyone, for a great afternoon. We'll see you all again soon.
Can I apologise to all the South Australians?
Sure.
Stay safe. Talk soon. See you.
Bye.